Okay. Oh man, this is a hot mess. The waiting room is the worst thing ever on Zoom. All right. How is everybody doing? Oh,
Good, thank you.
Hello.
good. Oh boy, we got echo. Oh no, how do I mute you? Okay, good. Okay, good. Excellent. So this is a first for us. This is turning into something way bigger. Oh my gosh. Yeah, this is turning into a big thing streaming on Zoom and Facebook. Hang on, y'all, just one moment. I just want to make sure we're actually live, because if we are, I can just go ahead and proceed. And let me fix my camera. Okay, you won't need to look at me that much. Let's see. Okay, we are good. And we are, we're live. Okay, perfect. So hello, Facebook. Hello, Zoom. Welcome to Vintage Ghost Hunting. I did mute everyone upon entry. It's nothing personal. It's just when you're dealing with a meeting that has a lot going on, it turns into a little bit of a mess. So I literally have two screens. I have a screen right here and I have a screen right here, like managing everything. So it's a, oh boy, it's definitely an adventure. And I don't know why I enabled a waiting room, because because I have to manually admit people. But anyway, so let me just check everybody, making sure we're good to go. Like I said, this is a first for us. This is also a free meetup, so free webinar. So don't worry about, getting your money's worth, because you won't. Okay, so in case you don't know me, my name is Alex. I am the founder and director of the Association of Paranormal Study. I'm basically the person who kind of runs the team. Sometimes it's like herding kittens, and just testing my light to see if I can make it a little bit better. Yeah, it's a little bit better now. Okay. So, I'm also the person who posts a lot on the social media page on Association of Paranormal Study. So if you've ever talked to the APS person on Facebook, it was probably me. Unless I'm getting into it with someone, I usually post as the page. It gets serious when I start to post as myself. So we have quite a few people here from Meetup, and we have a lot of people here on. We got some stuff happening on Facebook. Cool. Yeah. I'm trying to find the meeting controls so I can actually monitor everybody. Okay. Cool. So if you're not on mute already, please be sure to mute yourself, just because extra sound will be a little distracting. Why did I do the waiting room? Okay, here we go. I hope everyone is doing okay with the quarantine, the lockdown, and the ability to just go out and be normal. I hope everyone's doing okay with that. I know many of us are struggling, and if you're struggling, I really feel for you, and there's a light at the end of the tunnel coming at some point. So, and also for those of you who do have your videos on, this is streaming live on Facebook. So if you don't want your face to be seen, then I do recommend that you turn off your camera. If you are here and your camera is on, then that's consent for being on camera and on a live streaming Facebook page. So just so you know. Usually we don't go quite so public with our meetups, but since we have been moving to an all online platform, that's life right now. And with this particular topic, I did get a lot of requests to make this an actual widespread Facebook event, because so basically this is making it available to more people. So if you weren't able to get through on Zoom, you were able to hopefully get through on Facebook. So we do have some viewers on Facebook, which is exciting. So just some housekeeping. Like I said, just be sure your mic is muted there will be time for questions that I will open up. And just so that we don't run into like echoes and all that good stuff. I mean, I think everyone's gotten pretty good at navigating Zoom so far. Google Hangouts, whichever one you use, that's best for you. So, all right, that's pretty much all we need for me for housekeeping. So, you all can hopefully type in the chat. Oh wow, we got a lot of people in here. Cool. Hopefully y'all can type in the chat, and I hope I can see it. And if you are Facebook messaging me, I will not be able to answer it right now because my Facebook is like blowing up right now. If you are messaging me, I will get to your message after.
No,
So,
don't worry. That's me and Caitlin trying to get
right.
you.
How about y'all try typing in the chat right now? This is the Zoom chat. Okay, there we go. All right. We got some chats. Yay. Okay. Oh. Oh, Susan from Colorado. Hi, Andrew. Testing, testing. L is testing. Dylan. Hi, Dylan. Oh, it's nice to talk to you, Dylan. Colorado. Yeah, Colorado is pretty. Yes. I've only been to Colorado a few times. All right. All right, cool. I think everything is moving smoothly. Oh my gosh. Hopefully I didn't just jinx it. Ellen, if you're watching on Zoom right now, then you don't have to watch it on Facebook. If you just type in Association of Paranormal Study on Facebook, then you'll find us. We have a Facebook group and we have a Facebook page. Or if someone is able to send Ellen the link to the Facebook page, that would be awesome as well. The chat cannot be seen on Facebook, so if you decide to talk smack about, somebody in the chat, they will not see it in the Facebook page. Oh, hey, Leslie from Chapel Hill. Yeah, Jenny, that's the Facebook event, but it will link to the Facebook page, so we're good to go. Okay, vintage ghost hunting, very important. Sarah's in Clayton. Okay, a lot of North Carolinians in here, but that shouldn't be surprising because this is a meetup. Vintage ghost hunting. This is, I think, something critical for anyone who's interested in paranormal investigation, anyone who wants to go ghost hunting. Just like we need to know the history of our country, of our towns, our cities, I think we need to know the history of our profession, of our hobby, ghost hunting, even if it is a bit interesting. I will say the history of ghost hunting is quite colorful. There's never a dull moment in the history of ghost hunting, which literally never a dull moment. I'm always finding something new. This is usually a course that takes about 6 weeks. So, because I cover each period of time quite extensively. But this is just going to be about an hour because I've noticed our tolerance of being in an online meetup is, at least in a format like this, is about 45 minutes to an hour. So we're going to do this for about 45 minutes to an hour, and then I'll open it up for questions throughout. So yeah, and we're technically here until 2:30 Eastern Standard Time. I'm not going to do that math for Pacific right now because I don't math right now. And yeah, so hopefully you can get a lot out of this and enjoy it. So let's get started. Oh, I guess I have to click on the actual slide. That helps. Okay, so I'm breaking this down. Like I said, usually this is a 6-week course, about an hour each, so it's about 6 hours worth of content. I was trying to not overload people with content today, just to get the nitty gritty, just to get the like a preview. So I'm breaking it down into 3 different sections. So we have ancient, Elizabethan, and modern day. I may go on a tangent with Elizabethan times because that's part of what my master's degree was covering. So not necessarily in paranormal terms, but history in Elizabethan times. Yeah. All right. Here we go. Okay, the Neolithic period. This one's a fun one. So a lot of people think that ghost hunting really we've just had it since um, we've only had it since maybe we could even the spiritualism era. Not quite, not quite. The spiritualism era is a vital part of ghost hunting, but even back in the Neolithic period, people were communicating, trying to find ghosts. So from the very beginning, there's always been this idea that the soul survived after death. Even back in like the Stone Age, when before people even knew how to communicate with language, they were drawing pictures, and uh, anthropologists have found like cave paintings depicting ghosts. And I think this is pretty important because this tells us that this has been in our very existence since man began. Man began. Wow, that's a really bad rhyme. Um, so there was this idea that the soul survived after death. There was no doubt about it. Soul survived death. That was it. And it lived on in some other form. Now, but that soul after death still required some kind of sustenance, and that sustenance came in the form of how did they live their life, how did they die, um, how they were buried, how they're remembered. So all of that was part of how this individual's afterlife was like. um, and what I found interesting was that the souls of the dead were allowed to return by, really, there's a consistent thing here where the gods of this religion, that religion, their souls were allowed to return in some form, especially if they had a right that needed to be wrong. So like a improper funeral rites, they were murdered, or their body was never found. So even back then, in Stone Age, Neolithic period, and so on, there was this idea of the unsettled soul, which I always found incredibly interesting that there was this idea. And plus, you have animism, which is mostly seen as the world's first language, and it was everything has a spirit. Anyone who's like taken any of my webinars or gone to my meetups, I always make a really bad Pocahontas reference right now. Everything has a life, has a spirit, has a way. Uh, so any Disney freaks, feel free to chime in on that. Um, Oh, and I forgot to mention, y'all, feel free to type in the chat throughout, because if you do have a question, you can type it in the chat and I'll see it. Or if you have commentary or you disagree or you agree, feel free to chat so I can see it, and I'll try to respond when it's time. So yeah. Anyway, so an exploration of the paranormal isn't just a century and a half years old. It's much older than that, because when you do have an unrestful spirit, you needed to find a way to make that soul restful. So there's a few different ways that this happened, and I'm going to go through it probably by culture. It is by culture, not probably. Okay, ancient Mesopotamia. So this is one of our oldest civilizations on the map. Yes, they did have paranormal experiences, and they did explore the paranormal. Now, if you saw a ghost in ancient Mesopotamia, that wasn't a good thing. There wasn't this whole thing of like, oh, I saw my grandmother and she's wishing me well and so on and so forth. No, 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 it wasn't like that for ancient Mesopotamia. If you saw a ghost back then, it meant that there was something wrong. Something was wrong. And again, we go back to that whole, we have a right that has to be wrong, or a wrong that has to be righted. Whew. Sorry, y'all. It's only 1:15. So in this case, families would go to these doctors, and they would employ spells to placate the ghosts until they could find out what was wrong. But it actually turned into more of a confrontation. So if someone says, "Hey, I'm being haunted," the doctors would kind of look at them and be like, what did you do? So it wasn't the ghost, it was what did you do to cause this? And I've always found this very fascinating because as a team that does residential cases on a pretty regular basis, a ghost isn't always there just to be there. Sometimes there may be something that the client has done or the way that a client is living that they are attracted to, or in this case in ancient Mesopotamia, so the doctors would ask the family, what lies did you tell? Any lies? Did you what sort of sin did you commit that called these ghosts from the underworld, pretty much? So usually it's meant that the person did something wrong. But I found this particularly fascinating because with my team, we take a very similar approach. I mean, we're not so accusatory. We're not like, what did you do? We're more like, hey, what's been going on in your life right now? And try to get the pieces together from there. So, yeah. Any comments or questions? If you have a question or a comment, feel free to chime in the chat and I can unmute you. Crickets, crickets. Let me check Facebook really quick. Dun, 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 dun. I don't even know if I can see the Facebook comments. If you're on Facebook and watching, oh, there we go. We do have Facebook comments. Okay. Huh. And I can't see them. Oh, Megan's watching. Okay. Hi, Megan Beard. Cool. Well, keep it going with the comments on. All right. So I'm watching on Facebook. Actually, if there's any core members watching, if you can keep an eye on the Facebook chat, that'd be really good because then I don't have to do it. All right. So let's move on to ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt. So if there's any culture that's got a fascinating paranormal history, it's ancient Egypt. So, I mean, I'm assuming at this point we're all familiar with Egypt's burial rites, how much work they put into preparing this person for the afterlife and making sure that they're well taken care of. So the soul itself is known as now if anyone speaks ancient Egyptian, I apologize ahead of time for this mispronunciation. The soul is known as the Ku, and it's actually broken up into 5 different components, but I'm going to talk about 2 of them. Ba and Ka came together after death to form Ak. And Ak was what returned as a ghost. So now Ba and Ka, that was the spirit and personality. So apparently in life they were separate, but then after death they come together to make Ak. So Ak. So that tells me, one, they believed that ghosts were sentient, they were conscious, they were aware, they were aware of their surroundings. Now, I don't know if anyone has noticed this so far, but we haven't really brought up what we call residual hauntings, where it's more like an energy imprint and something just kind of playing like a broken record. It's not conscious, it's not aware. I've noticed in researching the history of the paranormal and ghost hunting, residual hauntings aren't really a thing that pop up. And I don't know if it's because they didn't really cause a ruckus, which, I mean, if you saw a ghost, that would cause a ruckus regardless. Or did it mean that there really wasn't residual energy because funeral rites back then were very detail oriented, and making sure that the soul was well taken care of in the afterlife. Whereas I think as time has proceeded and moved on, I think the focus on that afterlife has been taken away or dampened, so to speak. So that's just a thought that I've had with that. Just because, like I said, in the research I've done, residual hauntings, not really so much a thing. There's some that are there depending how you translate certain documents, but yeah, I've always found that interesting. So, so rewinding a bit, Ba and Ka create Ach. So you have the spirit and the personality aspect of the soul coming together to create this ghost. And the gods again allowed Ach to return to the physical world to address wrongs. Oh, hi, child. uh, Steve, I see I think that's your child in there. They're adorable. Hello. So Ach could return to address wrongs and now those who were haunted. This is how ancient Egyptians dealt with hauntings. It's very similar to Mesopotamia in a sense, but haunted people had to plead their case to the ghost. They had to basically take care of your own confrontation at first. And if that didn't work, then you could get a judge and a priest involved, which could mean a few different things depending on what you think of when you see a priest. So a good example of that, there was a story that I found. I couldn't remember if it was from Yale or Harvard in their anthropology department, or if it was Library of Congress. But there was this widower who, after his wife died, had relations with another woman. And she started haunting him because that was a big wrong. And he had to write a letter to her apologizing and saying, I committed this horrendous act. I'm so sorry. And he had to leave. I think he had to leave the letter in her tomb. But it was this big thing of, again, righting a wrong. And I guess it wasn't as confrontational as Mesopotamia. Like, in ancient Egypt, you needed to deal with it yourself first, and if that didn't work, then you got people involved. So, yeah, I thought that was interesting. And like I said, it does kind of reflect how we deal with hauntings today too. It's like, okay, what's going on in your life? Why is this X, Y, and Z thing happening to you? Okay. Okay, ancient Greece and Rome. Okay, I love this section because I get to tell my favorite story. Now, in terms of ancient Greece, in their belief system, no souls were condemned into damnation. And when they, after they, I think it was Kronos, paid Kronos their money, crossed the river Styx, and went to the underworld. They eventually did go into the river Lethe. Sorry. They went into the river of forgetfulness, where they forgot their physical life on Earth. So, in that case, you think there's probably not a lot of hauntings in that situation because they were forgetting who they were and staying in the underworld. But there is one ghost story from ancient Greece that I always love. I love to tell this story. It's one of my favorite stories ever. This was found in the writings of Pliny the Younger. Pliny the Younger was a philosopher, scholar in ancient Greece. And this did take place in Athens. Well, the story happened in Athens. He was writing a letter to his friend, Pliny was, and he said, "Oh, I heard this really interesting story. I have to tell this to you." And this man, his name was Athenodorus. He was looking for a house in Athens, Athens, Greece. And he found this ad for this house and the price was really good. It was actually a really cheap house. And I always laugh at this because some of the best haunted house stories start with, the house was really cheap. For some reason, the house was at a really good price. And he had heard this story as he was buying the house. He heard the story of this ghost that would come out of the shadows every night, and it would have chains in its hand, and it would like point at you and tell you to go with it. And so Athenodorus finds this out, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm ready." Okay. I think I might have been Athenodorus in a previous life. So he's got his candles out his first night. He's got the candles out. He's got his writings out. He is ready for this ghost to come, and it does not disappoint. The ghost does come. He could hear the rattling chains. The ghost looks very haggard. It has a long beard. It looks very, terrifying. It looks terrifying. So, and the ghost looks at Athena and tells it, beckons it to go with him. And Athena goes with the ghost, and the ghost takes him out to the back courtyard, and he goes to this one spot on the ground and disappears. So Athena marks the spot with an X, and the next morning he gets the town magistrate to dig up that spot, and sure enough, they found the remains of a man, and he was covered in chains. And then after that, the ghost was never seen again. So Athena solved a haunting and got a great house at a great price. I wish I could buy a house like that and get that, and that's how I get a good discount. Yeah, it's a good story. I did leave out a lot of details because time, but definitely look into it. It was Athena, and the story came from a letter from Pliny the Younger, Pliny. So Pliny the Younger. Cool. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to. Oh, I didn't talk about Rome. No Elizabethan England yet. Go away, Banquo's ghost. Okay. So, ancient Rome. So one of the earliest accounts we have of the ancient Romans and their awareness of ghosts and hauntings comes from a play called The Haunted House, written by Plautus, spelled Plautus. And that's really probably one of the earliest forms of writing we have in regards to at least what their understanding was of what a ghost was, what the ghost lore is surrounding ancient Rome, and so on. Not necessarily the official documents of a haunting, but at least how they thought of ghosts, which I think is, again, it's important to know. I mean, I don't know. I think of the ancient Romans every time I go to Gettysburg, and Anyway, so to sort of condense this into an abridged version, in the haunted house, the play, the son has a party because his father's gone. His father goes on a trip, and so the son's like, okay, I'm gonna have a party, live it up. I mean, that seems like the most relatable and modern scenario I've ever read in my life. But then one of his father's servants goes to the son and says, hey, your dad's home early. And so the son gets all these people at this party and the servants and stuff and puts them in this house that's, in the backyard or next door or something like that. And but the house is a mess, but the son doesn't have time to explain why there's a mess, or at least clean it up, or at least clean up the mess. And so he tells the dad that there's a haunting, that the house is haunted. Like the house is a mess because there's a ghost. So, and the father doesn't doubt the story. That's the best part of this. And we got some really key information here on how the ancient Romans look at ghosts. Ghosts appear at certain times in the night. Ghosts couldn't be seen without light. I thought that was interesting. Like, you can't see ghosts in the dark. I mean, even if your eyes adjust, you can't see them in the dark. So they have to have some sort of light. In this case, it'd be more of like a form of a torch, like, lighting a torch, because they didn't have electricity back then. So, and ghosts don't normally appear in dreams unless it's your friend or a loved one, so someone you're already familiar with, which I thought was interesting. I mean, how many of us have had dreams where we've seen our lost loved ones, or friends who went before us? I mean, if I did see a stranger ghost, I wouldn't know they were a ghost, for one, but I thought that was interesting that the Romans believed such a thing. So, all right, let's go into my favorite part. Elizabethan England. So I'll make this brief because I could talk for hours about this, but we'll take this moment. Any questions? Any curiosities? I'm going to check Facebook, see how the comments are. All right. Oh, I only see a few comments though, but there's like 14. Okay, there we go. Yeah, these are good stories. I'm enjoying them. They're good. It's good information. Because I think if we understand where we came from as ghost hunters, that one makes us appreciate things a little bit more, but also understand that what we have today has a deep history, has a very deep history. It's a little more than just, oh, we're just going to go to this haunted location and check things out, that kind of thing. So, okie dokie. Oh, yeah, Brian, I can unmute you. Hang on, let me find you. Where is Brian? Oh, I found you and I passed you. All right, there you are. I unmuted you. There you are. Hey,
Okay.
Brian.
Hey, Alex. I have a question on the play, or is it the story Macbeth? Is that actually a true
Brian,
story?
I can't hear. Oh, wait, I need to unmute myself. I need to turn up my volume. All right. Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
All right. The play Macbeth, or the story, is that actually a true story?
So interestingly enough, there are some documents. There. Yeah. So there are documents that support that it is based on a true story because, back in Shakespeare's time, what did you do back then? You wrote about the monarchs and their families and where they came from. Now, in terms of the witches and all that stuff, might be a little bit of artistic elaboration. But yes, so anything in terms of like, no, I guess we could count Macbeth as a I don't know if Macbeth would be a history play or a tragedy or both. But yeah, so Macbeth was a hang on guys, my Facebook is blowing up and I need to take care of that. Yeah, so all right. Yes, Macbeth was a real person. So back in it's based on true story. So but in terms of his yeah, Dylan, you're right. Shakespeare definitely had a bias. Richard III. Um, that's a good one. Dylan, we should talk off to the side. Yeah. So but in terms of like the supernatural aspect, I can't say how much of that is true because one, Shakespeare was creating a drama. And also I think there was some, what's a good way to say it? Explanations for the things that we didn't understand. So we still do that today. So yeah, Macbeth. Oh, thanks, Caitlin, for doing the Facebook comments. Susan, I do have some loose notes, but a lot of this is coming off from the top of my head. So, because I'm really doing just the abridged version of this. Yeah. Let's see. I do have some bullet points I can send afterwards. I just have to organize them. Jenny will attest when you see stuff that is written that I write out from my brain, it gets a little confusing to read. She's like, yeah. Cool. Thanks for that question, Brian. That was a good one.
You're welcome.
I keep thinking I put this through, but I didn't. Okay. Any other questions? I am doing a lot at once.
Alex, I do have one.
Yeah.
When speaking of all these different eras, are they all kind of grouped together, or was there any differentiation between if they thought something was benevolent versus malevolent, or were they just all kind of grouped together as, oh, they're just all spirits? There was no differentiation between good, bad.
So depending on what you look at, there is some differentiations. I mean, if you look at ancient biblical texts, you have, oh, I know why this is happening. Sorry, I just solved a mystery of why my sound is the way it is. As we were talking just now. Oh, there we go. Now I should be able to hear everybody just fine, and not have to take off my headphones. Okay, so yes, depending on what you look at, like when you look at ancient biblical times, I mean, they did have, okay, the Holy Ghost. When they saw Jesus after he was resurrected, they thought he was a ghost. So even back then, during biblical times, there was a belief in ghosts. But then you also have the story of, Jesus casting the demons into pigs, and the pigs, jumping off the cliff. So there was a differentiation. And I think, especially when you look at Mesopotamia, Egypt, even in China and India, I didn't go into China and India for this webinar meetup, but they have a lot of differentiations as well. Oh, especially when you get into Japan. Japan has like hundreds of different types of spirits and ghosts, and a lot of it varies on how they died, their afterlife, how their family is living after they've passed. So there is there's a lot of differentiation there. And that's a great question too. And I would love to actually get into that maybe in like a future webinar when it comes to talking about malevolent and benevolent spirits. It's a lot of at once. So, but great question, Megan. Any other question? Steve sent me I know this was meant to be a private message, but Steve, if you would like to come to North Carolina, I would definitely take you ghost hunting. Any other questions? And Pat is trash talking the Babylonians on Facebook. I think we're good on questions. Okay, cool. We're gonna keep going. I am going to. Yes, King Saul also summoned Samuel. Oh gosh, and you have the Witch of Endor. Yes, Enoch. Endor. Yes. I hope I just didn't make like a Star Wars flub. Hang on, I need Witch of. Yeah, Witch of Endor. Yes. I was making sure I didn't make like a weird Star Wars biblical hybrid bad reference just now, which I can do. I've been known to do that. It's Endor. It's Endor. I just looked it up. Just checked. I think. Yes. Hebrew Bible, the Witch of Endor. Yes. So, yeah. Okay. Again, y'all, this is a free webinar. Someone had to build the pyramids. Oh, my Lord. Okay, we're going to keep going. Okay, so Elizabethan England. So if there's anybody that gave me probably the most information when it came to how the Elizabethans looked at the paranormal and spirits, it was Shakespeare, as well as Christopher Marlowe and Ben Jonson. And for those who don't know who Christopher Marlowe is or Ben Jonson, they were playwrights that also were alive during Shakespeare's time. Maybe a little bit late Shakespeare's time, maybe a decade after as well. There's a really good play by Ben Jonson. I forgot the title of it. It's either called The Devil is an Ass or something. I don't know. I'll have to look that up. But anyway, I actually got a lot of information from a play called Dr. Faustus, where this man makes a deal with the devil. And so there's a lot of things going on there. Witchcraft, Witch trials were a big thing during this time. King James I came out with demonology, which I have a copy of because it's the biggest joke, I think, in paranormal history or anything spiritual. Unfortunately, a lot of women, people died because of demonology. And it was basically this really poorly written reference guide on witches and demons and demonology and whatnot. So there was this really intense fear of the devil. I mean, we had the Restoration, we had, you have Catholicism and the Church of England, and you got all this stuff happening here on a spiritual level. And the way that, at least with Shakespeare, uses ghosts as plot devices, I thought was quite brilliant. And this didn't just come out of nowhere. If we go back to what ancient Mesopotamia, the ancient period, Egypt, Greece, Rome, where a ghost will come if there's something wrong that they have to address. In Macbeth, the ghost of Banquo comes to the dinner party after he's been murdered. I have a whole theory on the Scottish play Curse too. This isn't a theater. I can say Macbeth, right? Hopefully. I give a little credence to that curse just for personal reasons. The Scottish play. I'll just go to the Scottish play. I mean, this isn't theater, right? I mean, I only really just not say it when I'm in a theater, but if all the text starts going haywire, we're going to know. Shush, Jenny, it is not. There is no stage. There is no audience. Yes, there is an audience. Virtual, okay. And even with A Midsummer Night's Dream, we don't have ghosts there, but we do have like Oberon, Titania. We have some sort of spirits in that case. Same thing with The Tempest. With Prospero and Ariel, and the magic and wonderment of that. So I think in terms of how they dealt with those and how they might have hunted ghosts, they could have. I think they were very much plot devices, at least in that period of time. I haven't really found anything in terms of like them trying to resolve a haunting, besides what I've seen in plays, and how they deal with the ghosts in these plays back then. So I love all the world's a stage, and we are but players acting on it. Yeah. Okay. Scottish play. Guess I need to like spin around and go outside and turn around 7 times and spit to combat that. But the Scottish play Curse, I think, to me, it's real. Like, I don't think it's real because of well, no, I need to backtrack on that. I think it's real because we make it real, but also I have a theory that because depending on who you talk to, there's some theory that Shakespeare may have used actual words from witches in like the witches scenes, which invoke some sort of curse, but I don't know about that. I think though we give it so much credence. I think we've created our own Scottish play Curse, but that's just me. Cool. It's already 1:43. What? Okay. Yeah, exactly, Susan. So that's our little Elizabethan England in a nutshell, in a literal nutshell. I actually wrote a whole book about this, so that tells you how much is going on. All right, everyone good? Yes. Okay. Oh no, that did not come out to a good quality photo when it's blown up. We're going to go into spiritualism. Oh, I love spiritualism. I love this movement. Caitlin's like, yay! Oh, Caitlin, wait till you see the cheesecloth photo I found. You're going to love it. And it may break your heart. Okay, so And I am trying to move the there we go. Let's move everyone over here. There we go. Now my gaze is going to change over here because I look at myself when I'm talking to make sure I don't look too derpy. Okay. So spiritualism, the spiritualism movement, I think it's probably one of the most important movements in paranormal history. This quote is from Henry Raymond, who was the founder of the New York Times. Spiritualism had an appeal that is wider, stronger, and deeper than that of any philosophical or socialistic theory, since it appeals to the marvelous in man. In 5 years, it has spread like wildfire over the continent, so that there is scarcely a village without its mediums and miracles. If it be a delusion, it has misled very many of the intelligent as well as the ignorant. I love that quote. I will always have that quote in a course. So we're going to start with the Fox sisters. So let's go back to 1848 in Hydesville, New York. Let's start at the very beginning. This is going to be spiritualism in a nutshell as well, because, oh my God, there's a reason why this course is 6 weeks long. So Kate and Margaret Fox, here are the Fox sisters, in case people don't know. They hear rapping sounds and they make contact by using clapping and snapping fingers. They play games like Repeat After Me. They establish a code of communication, so with like clapping and like almost like a Morse code type of thing. So it's like is yes, is no, or knocking. This probably sounds a little familiar, doesn't it? Sounds a little familiar, especially with modern day ghost hunting. So the rappings actually followed one of the sisters, Kate, to Leah's house. Shave and a haircut, Michelle, that is right. So even when the girls were like moving, whatever the ghost was there, Mr. Splitfoot was following them. That's what they named the ghost, Mr. Splitfoot. And so news of the communication with Mr. Splitfoot spread like wildfire, as much as it could spread in the 1850s, or 1848, I'm sorry, a couple years shy of 1850s. So they were nearly stars and celebrities overnight. People were actually coming to their house to witness this. Like, people were lined up in front of their home to witness this interaction. So, and people were pretty sure we finally found proof of the afterlife. So, yeah, Mr. Splitfoot has a whole backstory. I don't remember it off the top of my head because I think I might have my stories mixed up, so I don't want to make too much of a jerk of myself. So I think too, spiritualism really amped up because of the media. So it was definitely a media-born movement, because had the media not intervened with Kate, Margaret, and Leah, we probably wouldn't be here today. Yeah. So it turned into this wildfire movement, and as we got into the 1850s, it turned into this thing where people were coming forward saying that they were a medium. And this was also a really interesting time for women. I've always said that the spiritualism movement is a feminist movement as well. And I'll get into more of that in just a moment. So when I go into this, so seances, table tipping, shows were rampant. And a lot of times these mediums were young, pretty women. They always had some sort of origin story, I found. Like, either they almost died, or like from some accident or from some illness, and then they came back to life. With these abilities. And I kind of find it funny too, because some of the mediums I encounter today, they have similar origin stories, and I'm like, okay, that's very 1850s of you, but I'll take it. I will get to that question, Susan, in just a moment, because that is a fantastic question. That is a great question. because I have the chat over here. So I'm like, rare. Okay. So, and a lot of spiritualists were also abolitionists. So, and we're talking pre-Civil War here. So, but it was also a little turbulent because things were just kind of starting to heat up a little bit in terms of, Lincoln getting into office and looking into the overall picture of the spiritualism movement. I think is valuable as well, because there's some stuff there that tells us a lot about our history. It is an interesting correlation to today. So, and what I found interesting was women were able to break the rules of Victorian society back then. So they were able to like cuss, they were able to like drink, they were able to do these things, because during these shows, trances and seances, Debbie doesn't have an origin story, that's funny, but a lot of times trances were a big thing in like either seances or these shows where they were trying to communicate with their lost loved ones. So that was a big one. So there's, I'm trying to remember, there was one, I think this might have been post-spiritualism, because I will tell this story if it correlates. It's actually a story I just started researching because it was interesting. Oh, maybe this might be relevant. Okay. Oh yeah, nope, 1865. Okay, not yet. Not yet. That's the answer. Not yet. Okay, cool. So, and what was interesting too with the spiritualism movement, it also embraced everybody. So we're talking regardless of your gender, your race, and your religion or your background, you could be a spiritualist. It was known as a faith devoid of intolerance. So I liked that at all. Oh, very much so. So 1852, we found the spirit circles were coming around and all that good stuff. So there's your cheese. There's your here's your photo, Caitlin. So this so obviously there was some Dylan, exactly. Someone blows their nose and you want to keep it. So during these seances, we have the infamous cheesecloth that was or the ectoplasm that was coming out of their mouths. But come to find out, a lot of the ectoplasm that was occurring was regurgitated cheesecloth. So part of the whole seance experience was, the medium could produce like a ghost out of her mouth or some sort of orifice. I've read some really weird ectoplasm stories, y'all. Because when I say orifices and openings, I mean, yeah, we'll just leave it right there. Sounds sick, right? It is. And I can't imagine being so dedicated to an idea or a concept or a cause that I was willing to like, do that. But the ectoplasm was like the residual, like, these are the best pictures ever. They are. This is probably my favorite photo from, I don't remember the year of this exactly, but to be so serious about this. Yeah. So there was some speculation that there was some fraud happening and that oftentimes that's what was happening. I have all my books on a shelf and I can show you some of my reference books and all of this too at the end when we're done here, with this one especially. Yeah, cool. We'll just keep going on that. So some of the most notable spiritualists, include Cora L.V. Scott. This is who's in the picture. She got into this like when she was like 12 or 13. Actually, she might have been younger. A lot of the mediums from the spiritualist movement, I mean, they're kind of like children. I mean, 11, 12, 13, 14-year-old girls. And I said that this was also a feminist movement, but also on the other hand, these young girls were also marrying men in their late 50s and 60s. Yeah, Dylan, I think you're right. I think that photo is from the late 20s. But anyway, so Cora was one of them, and unfortunately, she didn't have the greatest ending to her story. I'll let y'all. I'll type her name in the chat really quick. Her name is Cora L.V. Scott, and we also have Oxa W. Sprague. Oop, that was sent to Steve. Whoops. Let's see. Let me try Cora L.V. Scott. Who's another one? There were a few male spiritualists as well that got popular in the scene. Another one would be Daniel. No, is Daniel Douglas Home male or female? Anyway, here's another one you can look up. Okay, yeah. So there was also major spiritualist newspapers too that really made rounds. One of them was the Banner of Light, the Ground Mountain Sibyl, and the People's World. So, yeah. Okay. Cool. Now, the spiritualist movement kind of dulled a little bit, but then after the Civil War era, after the Civil War period, after the war, it really exploded in popularity. A question for you all. Why do you think the spiritualism movement had a resurgence after the Civil War? You can type in the chat, or you can unmute yourself if you'd like to speak. Gives me a chance to get some water. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. Great comments. Yep. Great answers. Yep. Yep. Yes, she did. President Lincoln's widow kept trying to contact him. Yeah, and actually she was also trying to contact their first, or one of their kids that had died. This is where I will grab a book to show you all. I'm going to stop video really quick. Talking. I'm just grabbing some books for you all so you can look at. So y'all can take a peek. Okay. Turning my camera back on. All right. So, whoop, there we go. Okay, books. If you really want to know more about like the spiritualism movement, we have Ghosts of Futures Past by Molly McGarry. This is a great one about the spiritualism movement. So I will type these in the chat as well at the end. Oh, not the book I was looking for. There's another one called The Psychic Life of Abraham Lincoln. I'll grab it in the end. That one's a great one too. There's another one called I Would Still Be Drowned in Tears. That book was written by a friend of mine, actually, Michelle Hamilton. I Would Still Be Drowned in Tears. And this really dived into Mary Todd Lincoln's dive into spiritualism. All right. I really need to go through I need to organize my bookshelf. All right. And then Ghosts of Futures Past is very textbooky, just to warn you. Yeah. And there was, so as we close out this chapter, so I kind of want to bring things in the full circle. Earlier in the course, I talked about the ideas of ancient Mesopotamians, ancient Egyptians, Greeks and Romans, what they, in the Neolithic period, why they believed there were hauntings. And a lot of the data that came back was, unfinished business, wanting to right a wrong. Their bodies weren't found. They were murdered, or something with their funeral rites did not go as planned. Let's bring this together. The Civil War violated something known as the good death in this period of time. Before the Civil War, people died at home. They were buried on the family plot. There were specific funeral rites that occurred before this time. The Civil War completely decimated that. You had soldiers dying on battlefields. They were being buried in shallow graves unless someone went back to go get them. They laid where they died. I mean, that was it. Or they were put in mass graves. They were robbed. The Civil War also destroyed families. I mean, there were entire families that were killed during the Civil War. And in that case, sometimes the same thing. If they died in bed alone, they stayed in that bed until somebody eventually came around to look inside and see something. So there were families that really did not get any sense of closure. So yes, everyone's correct in their answers. So cool. Let's keep going. We already covered Abraham Lincoln. The psychic life of Abraham Lincoln's really good. It really goes into the seances that happened in the White House, Mary Todd Lincoln's mental state, and so on and so forth. So I just skipped that one. Okay. Spiritualism is alive today. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Lilydale, New York, but that is a town. It's a town of spiritualists. So they do have doctrine. They do have they're together. They are organized. They are functioning. Oh, Megan says ghost hunters, William James in the search for scientific proof of the afterlife. This book? This book? Yeah, this is a great one. This is a great read about spiritualism. It's actually about William James and his cohorts when they were testing the psychic mediums. Yeah, this is a great book. I highly recommend it. Yeah, Lilydale. Yeah, Pat mentioned Lilydale in his chat. But yeah, Megan, it's kind of fun when you bring up stuff that I have because I can be like, this book, do my best Vanna White. Cool. Yeah, so spiritualists, I'm trying to read this and move the camera. There we go. Spiritualists are those who believe in a continued future existence and that people who have passed on into the spirit world can and do communicate with us. Sometimes I kind of wonder if maybe I'm a spiritualist because I totally believe this. I can't really get on board with anything else though. So here's just a really quick bullet point of what spiritualism believes in. So it's probably the only time there's bullet points in this. One of these days I'll get all my books in my library and I'll take pictures so y'all can see. A lot of books have been read. Yeah, so spiritualism believes in the soul survives and lives on the spirit world. Every human survives the death of a body and enters the spirit world and surrounds and interpenetrates the material world. And souls of the deceased can communicate with the physical world under the right conditions, like a medium. Spirits don't change much from their living selves while physical deficiencies are gone. And spirits have an interest in the physical world, especially loved ones, friends, etc. Yeah. And then they have their 7 principles. So they have the fatherhood of God, brotherhood of man, communion of spirits, and the ministry of angels, continuous existence of the human soul, personal responsibility, compensation and retribution hereafter for all the good and evil deeds done on earth, and eternal progress open to every human soul. All right, and the Ghost Club. I love talking about the Ghost Club because People like Charles Dickens and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle were members of the Ghost Club. It is still an existing club, is one of the oldest paranormal-centric organizations in the world. And basically it was dedicated to researching and investigating the supernatural and the unknown. Unfortunately, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle was so desperate to believe in supernatural elements. The Cottingley fairies were kind of his downfall. These two girls, Cottingley, that was little misspelling there. So these girls sent Sir Arthur Conan Doyle photos of fairies, and he believed them and made a big deal out of it, and it ended up being his ruin. So, one of his ruins. So, little pop quiz. Who's the guy in the photo? Dylan, you win the class star of the day. Yes, it is Harry Price. He was rather dashing, if I do say so myself. I always looked at Harry Price and I was like, okay, yep. Harry Price. Who's messaging me on Facebook again? Anyway, sorry guys. So yes, Harry Price. Probably a very important individual in our ghost hunting world. I don't know how many of you have read his books, but if you want to if we want to talk about vintage ghost hunting, super vintage, in 1908, a person by the name of Elliot O'Donnell wrote a non-fictional paranormal book. It is called Some Haunted Houses of England and Wales. I will put that in the chat. That's probably one of the earliest paranormal nonfiction books that we would see as paranormal nonfiction today. And there are, I hate to break it to some people, but Hans Holzer was probably not the first ghost hunter. Most likely it was Elliot O'Donnell. And O'Donnell also is one of the people attributed to creating the term ghost hunter, back from a book from 1916. And I have the chat closed. Don't get me wrong, I love Hans Holzer, and I definitely, Dylan, yep, definitely. So I would say there's another source for the term ghost hunter too that I can give y'all after this class. But yeah, so Elliot O'Donnell's writings, while a little interesting in terms of truth, but I found them fascinating with that. So as we go into the 1900s, we go into the First World War. The spiritualism movement winded down, I would say, around the 1920s. So that's when we started getting into, prohibition and so on. Harry Price did join the Society of Psychical Research in Society for Psychical Research in 1920. 1920, yeah. He wasn't quite 40 yet. And then there was another book that came out. This was actually kind of debunking spiritualism. This also came out in 1920. It's by a man named Joseph McCabe. And then also, as we know, in the 1920s, Harry Houdini started exposing fake psychics. So here we had the 1920s was kind of the beginning of the end for spiritualism. And of course, we also had the infamous crystal skull discovered in the 1920s in Belize. Belize? Yes, Belize. Anyway, so 1922, Harry Price really started diving into the paranormal, and he started debunking spirit photographers. Think he debunked Mumler, Hope. He basically, really started diving into the paranormal. So he was also one of the first people to really, besides Harry Houdini, to approach this with a skeptic perspective. So we really started getting into critical thinking, so on and so forth. And he investigates places like the Borley Rectory, and he joins the Magicians Club. yeah, there's a lot going on here with Harry Price. So what I found interesting was, and I totally found this way like out of the blue. I found it by accident. Anyone who reads my personal website knows about this story, but even during like the World War II era, there was some sort of like awareness and knowledge of like how to ghost hunt or how to investigate a haunting. Because I found a story from Tanforan, which was a Japanese internment camp in Northern California, not too far from San Francisco. And there was a story in the Tanforan Totalizer, which was the assembly. It was an assembly center. It was the assembly center's newspaper, and the people who were living in apartment 22 or 23 saw a blue ghost. And when I say apartment, it's a very liberal term for it because they were living in horse stalls. These Japanese Americans were. So they kept seeing this blue ghost appearing at night to the point where they were sleeping someplace else. They were sleeping with somebody in someone else's quarters. And this group of skeptics came in and started like going in and investigating this haunting of this blue ghost. And they thought they had solved it. They thought it was mold from the wood on the ceiling. But then when the family went back to the apartment, the blue ghost was still there. So they hadn't solved the mystery, and so the father, the head of the household, got a few of his friends. They went back into the apartment. All the lights are off. They see the blue ghost, but then they were able to figure out where it was coming from. They found a hole in the side of the wall that was emanating blue light from the outside. So, but that story told me that there was some sort of awareness of like some sort of modern day investigation practices, which I thought was interesting, and at an assembly center for Japanese Americans of all places. So yeah, we're at 211 right now. I could definitely go into more of this. I mean, we have Hans Holzer, and he wrote 135, 136, 140 books on the paranormal. A lot of stuff. And we could say that he was one of the first ghost hunters to really bring about the psychic investigator relationship. Because before that, I didn't really see a lot of that. Where, I mean, because we see it in TV all the time now, where you have the ghost hunter, then you have the medium too. And Hans Holzer was one of the first folks to really start doing that and to make it well known. So I always found that to be really interesting there as well. So, yeah. So modern day investigations. It wasn't hard to find a grainy photo of a ghost hunt. Dylan just made a really good note. He said Price wrote the Blue Book Notes for Investigators of Ghosts and Hauntings. It's now been updated by the Society for Psychical Research and available to purchase on Amazon. Yeah, definitely check that out, y'all. So anyway, so with everything we've talked about, can you think of things that ghost hunters are doing today that can be traced back from the past? Trigger objects, yeah. Bringing something familiar to the ghost. Mm-hmm. I'm going to take this moment to look at Facebook and get some water. Move this item, yeah, that's a big one. Yeah, having some sort of familiarity, so researching history before going to the site, then talk about the past. Yeah, that's a big one. And I know some people, well, for me, if you're a psychic medium, you shouldn't be researching history beforehand because that could taint you. I mean, you can only do so much for like a Civil War site, but yeah. But yeah, I know some people don't like to look into the history because they want to have like they don't want. I don't know what the word is for that. I think you need to absolutely look into the history because in the event you do find yourself in an encounter with a ghost and you might know who they are, then you want to know what you're talking about. You want to know what to talk to them about and everything. Yep. Use of equipment. Yeah, that's a big one. Harry Price was a big one for that. Since we use recorders for EVPs, are there any documented records that from the Victorian Edwardian era that supposedly captured a spirit's voice? Well, I mean, unless it's in writing. And any voices that, at least I found from the spiritualism movement, the voice came from the medium, so via trance. But I mean, electronic voice phenomena, I mean, they wouldn't have had that back then. So any voices that they would have heard would have been AVPs, which would have been audio voice phenomenon, which is what we could hear with our ears. So not coming from something for electronics. These are great questions. Okay, cool. Yeah, Andrew, that's Andrew asked me a question about that, which I read. Yeah, that one's a little tricky because a lot of it is just it's documented, but the spirit voices were coming from mediums. I haven't. I mean, if you think about with us today, I've only heard an AVP, not an EVP, AVP, audio voice phenomenon. I've only heard that maybe a few times in my investigation career, where I actually heard something with my actual ears, and then, yay, it got caught on the audio recorder. But that doesn't make it an EVP. So, EVPs, we don't hear them with our ears. We don't hear them with our naked ears, and even whenever I have heard something weird with my ears, I don't know what it said. And luckily, we have our recorders to go back and be like, okay, what was that? So I don't think there hasn't been as much documentation because of that. Since I heard something weird, but I don't know what it said, and I don't know if they would have thought that worthy or worth documenting. So. Yeah. Great comments, everybody. I can't believe it's 2:17. Yeah. Yeah, you're right. There's no I don't see any clairaudient? Is that what you mean, Susan? I don't think I'll take that back. There probably was some documentation of it, at least based on some of the diaries of a few spiritualists I've read. They didn't call it clairaudience, but based on what I've read, there is some documentation of that. I highly recommend reading Ghosts of Futures Past. That's a big one. And I think a lot actually, here we go. Hang on. Look it in the index, y'all. That's on a concept. Oh, here we go. Nope. Okay, a lot of clairvoyance, but clairaudience, no. All right. I like to look into a history book. Yeah, some of these were in the Banner of Light has a lot of documentation of clairvoyance. Yeah. Okay. Oh yes, it is. It is still active today. Actually, I know a few people who are trying to join, or they've already joined the Ghost Club. So no, the Society for Psychical Research, they are still going. Ghost Club is still going. There's also the Rhine Research Center, which is actually in Durham. It's actually it is just about 20 minutes from me. Yeah, that place is actually really neat. John Kruth, the director of it, he's a very dear friend of mine. He's a very dear man. And what's really cool is he has all of the testing equipment that J.B. Rhine used, and they also have a actual Gonsfeld vault, which Gonsfeld experiment, that is a sender receiver experiment where there's a sender, there's a receiver. The receiver is wearing has a white plane of vision, whether that's golf balls or a painted white goggles, and with a red light, white noise in the ears. I've actually seen some really interesting experiments with the Gonsfeld that I think are fantastic. There's also the American Society for Psychical Research, which is still going. You can join it, apparently. Yeah, they have an act. Well, their website looks really old. Maybe Dylan can look that up. So, oh yeah, there's tons of problems at American Society of Psychical Research, but so there's a lot of research organizations that are still existing. The Rhine Research Center was once connected with Duke, and then they separated and broke off. Yeah. So anyway, I think that's it, y'all. If you guys have any questions or comments, feel free to email me, or you can send me a Facebook message for those of you watching on Facebook. I'm pretty available. Just don't abuse the privilege. I'm fairly available to answer questions and everything. Like I said, this is normally a 6-week course. When I've done it in the past, this was very much a, hey, here's a little snippet of each thing, and I'm going to try to do a very high level overview. Thanks, Brian. Thanks, Dylan. And feel free to check out our APS's Facebook page. We have a website as well with a lot of articles ranging from like ghost stories to more analytical things. I also, on my own website, I do singing and spooky stuff. So I do singing, but I also cover spooky stories like the Ghosts of Tanforan at the Japanese American Assembly Center. I cover a bunch of like different paranormal topics there as well. So yeah, and feel free to share this video on Facebook. It's going to be on Facebook, so my awkwardness can spread among the masses. So yeah, and like I said, we're pretty available, so feel free to send us a message either on Meetup, Facebook, email, our website. Our website, I'm getting to the end. My talking is starting to get very gibberishy. parastudync.com, like parastudynorthcarolina.com. That's our website. Let me, if you guys want to visit our website, and you can see our contact info and stuff. Yeah, and we do ghost hunts throughout the year. Well, not right now. Not right now because of things. So this is our way of connecting with everyone. And if this is something you want to see in the future, if there's other topics you want to dive into, maybe not run by me, but maybe by someone else who is smarter than me in that area, feel free to reach out. Like if there's a topic you want to learn more about, because we're not going anywhere anytime soon. So we can take this time to learn more about the paranormal. So awesome. All right, I need to stop sharing. How do I stop you? Okay. There we go. Okay. Oh, I see people. Okay, that's funny. Okay, Susan, I could put a face to the name. And I see Leslie, I see Lauren, I see Ellen's online, Ray, Brian, Brian and Megan, Pat, Karen, Terry, Dylan. Yeah, okay. And Michelle, Elle, I don't know who Elle is. And Stan. Stan's one of my San Diego paranormal friends. San Diego Paranormal Eye. Had to really think about that for a minute. Cool. All right. Well, I'll also take this moment to do a shameless plug for everyone else. If you have a paranormal team that you would like, Andrew. Oh, Andrew's there too. If you have a paranormal team that you would like to, give a shout out to, feel free to put it in the comments on Facebook or here. Let us know where to find you and how we can support you in your paranormal adventures. So, figured, why not? Why not? Let's all love each other and share the love. Yeah. So. Cool. All right, I'll go ahead and start wrapping this up, and May 16th will be the next one. Yes, May 16th. Yes, May 16th. Oh, Cheyenne Mountain Paranormal Investigation. Okay, awesome. Oh yeah. Anyone can visit. I would call ahead of time. Well, I don't know if you can visit right now, but normally you can. They have like business hours. I recommend sending an email to them just saying, hey, I would like to stop by on this day and time. They're really cool about that. theghosthunter.co.uk. Oh, I'm going to visit that right now. Yeah, they're really good people. They're very good people. So I definitely recommend that. So, no, that's a snazzy website. Man, Dylan, how did you snag the Ghost Hunter? Like that's a valuable URL right there. Oh, you do Great American Ghost Tour. That's right. Yes. Light bulb just went on. Ding. Oh yeah, definitely check out Great American Ghost Tour on Facebook, y'all. I really enjoy Dylan's posts with that. Oh, Dylan. Well, I don't know if Con Carolinas is happening, so I don't know if it's happening. Dylan, you're going for a PhD, right? Yeah. Yeah, Dylan is super smart. I always enjoy his posts. That way there's no prolonged moment of silence. Nice. Okay, so, all right, well, let's see. Let's go ahead and wrap this up, y'all. I will see you all next time, okay? Oh, yeah, PhD in exploring media and the paranormal. Nice. That's a good one. All right, bye, everybody.